also coming up. Now on to another important story.
That'll be totally up to the new Attorney General. He's a tremendous man, a tremendous person who really respects this country and respects the Justice Department. So that'll be totally up to him.
Well, it's his second year now. The reports reveal it could be wrapped up as early as next week. And once the Mueller report has been received by newly minted Attorney General Bill Barr, he will then decide what to give to Congress, if anything, and to the public. The investigation, initiated by a bunch of rogue FBI agents, has been an anchor, kind of an anvil, around Donald Trump's presidency since his earliest months in office. Here to unpack all of this for us is John Yoo, former Deputy Assistant Attorney General for Bush 43. Now, John, a lot of folks on other networks contend tonight that Bill Barr is forcing an end to this investigation. What do you think?
I think that's far, far from the truth. Under the regulations under which Mueller was appointed, he's going to complete his investigation and submit a report to Bill Barr. Bill Barr's Attorney General then has to write his own report to Congress, and Barr is the one who's going to decide how much of the report to make public. Personally, I hope he makes all of it public, or as much as he can without revealing any secrets or grand jury testimony, because I think it's going to clear President Trump. I haven't seen any evidence of President Trump committing any crime, and so when that report comes out, that's going to, I think, clear him. The faster and better and more that's available, I think the better for President Trump and the country, so we can get moving on to other important issues.
The former FBI acting director, Andy McCabe's hawking a book, and he seems to be contradicting himself between interviews. Let's watch.
Rosenstein was actually openly talking about whether there was a majority of the cabinet who would vote to remove the president.
That's correct. Counting votes. Or possible votes.
Did he present that idea to other cabinet officials? Because, as you know, he had to count heads to see, do I have the votes to remove the president?
Not that I'm aware of. I have no indication.
Yeah, I mean, it's a little fuzzy there for him. I mean, the counting votes, will it present, not counting votes?
Well, first of all, it shows how over their heads these people were.
Well, that's a very benign way of looking at it.
Exactly.
McCabe's over his head. He lied 3 times to the Inspector General.
No, McCabe, I don't think is over his head. I think Rosenstein's over his head and panicked and allowed these people who are clearly biased against President Trump to occupy the vacuum and push, I think, this insane idea to trigger the 25th Amendment against a sitting president who's able to perform the functions of the job. So I think what you see here...
Well, one of them is lying. One of them, Rosenstein said it never happened. This guy said it happened, but he's a proven liar. But it's pretty embarrassing, this whole story. The idea that an FBI director or acting director should be taking part in any meeting like it's just, it's unconscionable. But it demonstrates why this investigation was a fraud from the beginning.
Well, look, McCabe has already been found to have lied to investigators. Rosenstein, if you read carefully what he says, has not actually denied it. Rosenstein has actually said, well, I didn't actually carry out the wiretapping. He never denies that he talked to McCabe about it. I cannot believe that the highest echelons of our Justice Department law enforcement officials were considering trying to remove the president under constitutional provision, which is for presidents who are sick or ill or have been shot.
Yeah, well, and anytime he's pressed on it, he always falls back on these generalities. Well, he fired Comey. He's totally entitled to fire Comey. All the things he claimed. I want to play something. This is from our own Judge Napolitano on with Shepard Smith about whether this behavior could rise to the level of obstruction of justice, this alleged phone call with acting Attorney General Mark Whitaker to put back a judge who had recused himself on the Cohen case in the Southern District of New York. Let's watch.
The phone call would be evidence of what?
Corrupt intent. That is, an effort to use the levers of power of the government for a corrupt purpose.
Would that be obstruction?
Yes. It would be attempted obstruction. It would only be obstruction if it succeeded. But if you try to interfere with a criminal prosecution that may knock at your own door by putting your ally in there, that is clearly an attempt to obstruct justice.
Look, I'm very fond of Judge Napolitano, but I think he's just wrong on this one. And he's actually insulting the personal ethics of the United States Attorney and President Trump. There's no reason to think the U.S. Attorney for the Southern District of New York, probably the most important federal prosecutor in the country outside Washington, would take that prosecution over and deliberately tank it to protect the president. That is an accusation against the ethics of the prosecutors who are working for him. So I think Judge Napolitano is just getting a little bit overexcited about this, alleged phone call that's on the front page.
But the president is entitled to have an opinion. So if the president invents, it's like, why is this guy recusing himself? This is ridiculous. Why are people recused? I'm just guessing. Yeah. I bet that's what he said. If he said anything,
it's
that's what he said.
It's more than that. The president's entitled to more than an opinion. He's entitled to appoint the officers who are subordinate,
who aren't going to be recusing themselves every 5 seconds.
Exactly. Under the Constitution, he's the chief prosecutor. All the prosecutors work for him. He gets to appoint the people who serve in office.
Where are we right now? I mean, this Mueller thing's been going on for 2 years. We get a sense it's winding down. It doesn't seem like there's anything. Not only there's nothing there, most likely, but the entire basis for starting this investigation seems politically motivated.
I think it goes back to the first segment you had. It goes back to Rosenstein being panicked over his head, and McCabe and these biased FBI agents sort of filling the vacuum and launching an investigation that's not clear, could have just been handled by regular prosecutors, regular DOJ, and it would have been over a long time ago. So I think what's going to happen is the report will get issued. I hope Attorney General Barr releases it to the public. I think it's in Trump's advantage for everyone to see that. And then the form will really move to Congress. If Congress wants to try to launch impeachment investigations,
good luck.
Let them have at it then.
We'll remember what happened when they did that to Bill Clinton. Didn't work out so well for the Republicans. John Yoo, thank you so much.
Well, I think Andrew McCabe has made a fool out of himself over the last couple of days, and he really looks to me like sort of a poor man's J. Edgar Hoover. I think he's a disaster.
That was the president weighing in on Andrew McCabe's recent book tour. Americans put a lot of trust in the FBI. They have no choice. It's our top law enforcement agency. FBI officials are supposed to be adults, supposed to be immune to hysteria and fads, and above all, immune to political pressure. But the last couple of years have shaken the public's faith that any of that is true. Jim Comey grandstanded for attention. Sometimes he helped Hillary Clinton, other times he hurt Hillary Clinton, but it was always all about him. Peter Strzok and Lisa Page, we know, swapped hysterical texts that were also dumb. And when it comes to Russia, Andy McCabe sounds worse than any CNN anchor. Here's one selection.
I don't know that we have ever seen in all of history an example of the volume and the significance of the contacts between people in and around the president and his campaign with our most serious, our existential international enemy, the government of Russia.
Quick, define existential. I bet you can't. Of course you can't. McCabe also recently said that he wouldn't be surprised if the president were taking orders from Russia.
Do you still believe the president could be a Russian asset?
I think it's possible. I think that's why we started our investigation, and I'm really anxious to see where Director Mueller concludes that.
Well, there's no evidence of that, but you don't need it. He has a feeling, and hopefully we'll get some facts. New reports today indicate the release of Robert Mueller's final report could be imminent. Who knows? Eli Lake has been covering this stuff for a long time. He's a Bloomberg opinion columnist now, and he joins us today. So, Eli, to me, speaking as a citizen, it's not really about Trump or the Democratic Congress. It's about whether you can trust your most powerful institution domestically, which is the FBI. And if the former deputy director is saying with a straight face, no, he could be a Russian agent on the basis of really no evidence, that seems so reckless and scary to me.
It's harder to justify that, especially 2 years into the administration.
Yes.
President Trump has appointed Russia hawks at the highest levels of the government.
Noticed.
He has, in a lot of cases, not every single one, countered Russian interests directly. The most recent example being Venezuela, selling lethal arms to Ukraine. So there's been no quo to the quid. And the quid has yet to be established after more than 2 years of an investigation from the FBI, which is to say the initial theory was that there was a conspiracy between the Trump campaign and Russia to distribute, steal the emails from the DNC and John Podesta, and that there was coordination in some ways with the Trump campaign to help Russia influence the election. Well, I think most people believe that the Russians certainly tried to influence the election, but the other part of that, which is that coordination, not only hasn't been proven, according to the indictment of Roger Stone, they didn't know what were in the emails. That Roger Stone was trying to figure it out from WikiLeaks. And the Trump campaign had asked Roger Stone to find out what was in the emails if they were coordinating. Don't you think that why would they have to go to Julian Assange?
So if you really wanted to help Russia, you'd want to spike natural gas prices because that's the Russian economy. And the fastest way to do that would be to take the richest natural gas fields in the world offline with the Green New Deal. So I don't really understand. So the very people who are saying that the United States should stop the production of fossil fuels are claiming that Trump, who promotes the production of fossil fuels, is somehow on Russia's side. Like, it seems insane to me.
Well, Russia, I mean, in fairness, Trump gets into trouble sometimes. I mean, I think in 2016 when he said, Russia, if you're listening, you should leak the Hillary emails and things like that. And there are moments where the Helsinki summit from like last summer is another example where he will say things that I think most people, including myself, would sort of scratch their heads like, where is this coming from? Why is he being so deferential to Putin? But what we haven't seen is any kind of follow through in terms of the policy, nor
the bedrock interests.
Yeah, right. Nor have we seen the evidence that there was in all of these meetings that have come out and things that he's talking about and all these contacts. Well, we have yet to see anything coming close to that initial claim.
So it just seems like, look, if you're Ralph Peters or some kind of, hysterical person on TV making hysterical claims, that, that's fine. But if you're the deputy director of the FBI, or just have been, or the director of the FBI, and you command a massive domestic army that's heavily armed and can crush and kill people, then you have an obligation not to be reckless in the things you say in cable news, right?
Right. This was the first few months into the administration. I think the FBI really was freaking out. What's less understandable to me, and I think is completely baffling, is Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein. Because according to McCabe, Rosenstein was frantically meeting with him and other senior leaders of the FBI, proposing maybe the invocation of the 25th Amendment, wearing a wire, doing all these, and ultimately leading to the appointment of Robert Mueller as a special counsel. But it was Rod Rosenstein who originally helped basically come up with a memo justifying the firing of Comey. So how is he on both sides of that issue?
No,
and it's like, the argument that I get from reading between the lines, and I've read a bit of the book now from McCabe, is that there would be no investigation. They wouldn't have launched this investigation. We wouldn't have gotten Mueller if only Trump had stuck to the initial cover story that that obscured his real reasons for firing Comey. If only he said it was all about Hillary Clinton, then we wouldn't have, according to McCabe, and that doesn't make any sense.
It doesn't make any sense, and I'm even more confused, but grateful that you tried to explain their reasoning. Ilya Lake, thank you very much.
Thank you so much for having me.